Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. It is NBA season preview time. Jiarmani and I are here with the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, very interesting team a year ago. The Utah Jazz ended up winning 37 games, and they finished, I believe it was 12th to 13th in the West. I forgot to write it down. My apologies. But they won 37 games, which was far more than they were projected. They were projected to be one of the worst teams in the league, but they actually won quite a few games, surprised some people. What do you make of the Jazz's season last year?
I would say it was the Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler coming out party. Lauri Markkanen went from just a really solid role player, a guy with some upside in Chicago, who really never truly figured it out, and then gets sent to Cleveland, and again, still just more or less just everybody was just chalking him up as a just going to be a quality role player on a fun young team, and then gets sent to Utah in the Donovan Mitchell trade, and ends up being the best piece in that deal for the Jazz, and comes out and averages 25 points a game. And the key thing that I noticed there is that, from my understanding, the Jazz started playing him as a small forward at legit 7 feet, and yeah, that guy literally started pouring it on. He's gotten comfortable, and like Utah has their guy to build for to the future. Walker Kessler is a really good player. They still have Jordan Clarkson, who's entering his 30s now. He's more or less now a veteran for that team. Uh, don't have the roster pulled up, but I really liked what the Jazz had going on. Uh, Alluding to their record, yeah, they won 37 games, and they were a couple of spots away out of the play-in. There were 2 games back of the 10-seeded Thunder. Honestly, I could see the Jazz making some noise and trying kind of getting over that hump a little bit and finding their way into the play-in with another season of Markkanen and another season of Walker Kessler. I really want to pull up their roster, because I know they definitely have some more guys on there. But let's see. Nope. But yeah, look, I have high hopes for Utah going into the season.
Yeah. And they were in a position last year where, hey, they just thought this was going to be a full rebound, a full rebuild and tear it down. But Lauri Markkanen has always been a guy with a lot of upside, and they had the guts to take a swing on him in that Donovan Mitchell trade, and it paid off for him. Looks like he finally, hit on that upside that everyone has kind of been waiting for. So utmost credit to him. Walker Kessler, who they got in the Rudy Gobert trade, comes in and plays a great 5 spot, great defensively. He isn't, a world class center, but, sitting here at the beginning of a rebuild and you've got Walker Kessler at your 5, and you're doing good things. And then, like you said, they almost made the plan, and they also went out there and tried to get better this offseason. They snagged John Collins from the Hawks, and
Not to
that
mention
kind
that.
of that kind of feels like another reclamation project to me, where John Collins was a guy who 3 years ago, public opinion was a lot higher on him. It's since dipped. They got him at a low price, and they're going to start him at the 4 and see if that pans out. Taylor Hendricks is a guy out of the draft that I really liked. 6'10" shot blocker that can shoot the 3. He's a guy who I think they're going to have a good time developing. He'll come off the bench immediately, or this season, obviously. Keontae George, high upside swing. Bryce Sensabaugh, high upside swing. So they're taking some effort to improve the roster both in the short term and the long term, which makes them an interesting team in a very, very competitive Western Conference.
Yeah, I really like the move for John Collins, especially he has 20 point per game potential. Obviously, his stock started dropping with Atlanta. I feel that the fit there. He was in trade rumors for a long time. Even a bunch of teams were looking at him. A lot of contending teams. So I feel Utah is probably a great place for him to have low expectations, as he's not seen as this like guy who should be that number 2, even though he had that 20 point per game potential with playing alongside Trae Young. But dude's athletic. He the shot sometimes struggles for him, but I do feel like he can get back up to being that 18 to 20 point per game scorer. Colin Sexton, I believe they managed to get him on a little bit of an extension, if I remember correctly. But again, another former 20-point per game scorer out there in Cleveland. I think he was it was kind of like a rough start for him in Utah, but I think he's kind of found his footing a little bit. They have a good team. They have a capable team. I think I enjoy the fact that they were trying to get better. Will Hardy, I think a former assistant coach for the Celtics, with the Ime Udoka led team from the 2022 season. So I think they have a lot of good pieces in place, and I feel those guys they will probably be in the mix for a play-in or a lower seeded in the West. But I'm very excited to see how this Utah Jazz team plays out. But I would say a bold take would be that John Collins would be a 20-point per game scorer this year.
I like that. And when I look at this team, I think they're going to be very strong in the 3 through 5 spots. You've got Markkanen, Collins, Kessler. I think that's a really good 3-4-5.
Tall as hell.
Yeah, absolutely massive, and they'll still be able to space the floor because Markkanen can shoot the three well. If John Collins gets his three back to its peak, that will help a lot in that. Taylor Hendricks can come off the bench, shoot the three, and kind of fill in and kind of keep that same length and positional size. So teams aren't even going to get a break from that style of player all night long, even when the bench guys are out there. So that's going to cause some teams some struggles. The real question to me is how this guard room plays out and how the guard rotation plays out. And I think that's going to probably in my opinion, that'll be the biggest factor as to whether they get one of those playing spots or whether they're left out. Right now, we're looking at Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Taylor Horton-Tucker, and Chris Dunn are kind of your top 4 guys in that guard rotation. Which guys are going to step up and be a starting caliber guard? I believe it'd have to be Sexton and Clarkson. Clarkson had a good year last year. Sexton looking to get back on track, but he's had some good years in the past. And another guy who coming out of college, very high potential guy, and maybe they can do a similar thing as they did with Markkanen and kind of hit on some of that potential years down the road.
Something I could see if because I remember I was talking with Hannafin about this when referencing Golden State. If things don't work out and Chris Paul is a bad fit in Golden State, I could easily see Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz giving Golden State a call about inquiring about Chris Paul, because I think Chris Paul would be great for this team, even in his advanced age. The fact that he's able to still dish the rock, he's able to still he's so good at getting other guys involved. That would be an absolute godsend, that kind of player to make their way to Utah to really kind of really try to lead that the group of young guys there. Because I believe Jordan Clarkson is probably like the oldest guy they have, or at least the longest tenured player. I'm trying to see here. Yeah, and Kelly Olynyk. I can't forget about Kelly Olynyk. But they got a couple of guys. Also Chris Dunn's like a 7-year guard, but I'm talking about like guys who've had like stable careers in the NBA. So and that's a legendary point guard. Even if he's like time sticking on his career, I think Chris Paul would be a great addition if they could somehow get him. But obviously, we'll have to wait till the season plays out. But I think the Jazz are just like one quality point guard away from really making something special for Utah going into the future.
Yeah, I'm with you. And one name I forgot to mention in the guard rotation, Keontae George. We talked about him earlier, but 16th overall pick. And, if you bring in a guy like Chris Paul, he would be a great mentor for a young kind of spark plug guy like Keontae George. And maybe he could help him learn the ways of a veteran point guard and learn how to play point guard in the NBA. I think that would be beneficial to a young player like him, who they obviously really like. They spent the 16th overall pick on him. And in my eyes, like we mentioned, that's the X factor. Can you get good, consistent play out of the guards? I imagine there will be spots where these guys get hot, but you're going to need some consistency out of one or more guys to really find some success. And as far as my projection goes, I think this roster falls just short. I have them 11th in the West right now. And I think it's going to be a very, very tight race. I don't think they're out of it at all. I think they're right in the thick of things. And if you tell me they walk away or end the season as the 9 or 10 seed and they're in the play-in, I would not be shocked at all. I picked the Mavs as my 10th spot, and man, I would not be surprised if they don't make it. That would not be the most surprising thing to happen this year. So that's kind of the way I view the Jazz heading into this year, and that's kind of how I view their playoff chances.
Yeah, I would say definitely. It seems like realistic, especially for the where the team is at right now. I feel Danny Ainge, like they have a good product out there on the floor. The team's gonna be fun regardless. Obviously, the West, there's only so many spots. Like the West, like me and Hannafan were speaking the other day. It's gonna be a bloodbath. Like there's so many good teams out there. But I say Utah is gonna be a tough game every time, no matter who they play. Yeah, just the length that team has and the ability to space the floor. It's just, yeah, that consistent guard play is going to be an absolute necessity. So yeah, just real interesting to see. It's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a very productive season, nevertheless, for Utah.
Yeah, and if this team was in the East, they probably, walk away with the playing spot. If we're being honest, so they're just unfortunate because of their geographical location. So it's a shame for the Jazz, but it is what it
Uh,
is.
let's see. If 37 wins, where would they have been at? Uh, they would have
They
been just short. But I see your point.
Yeah, the East this year is, they might be a better team than the Nets, who's a team that's right in there fighting for the spot. So there's a couple teams in the East that are a little shaky in the play-in, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yep, got NBA season. Really, like NBA season's here. By
Yeah,
the time we're recording, it's here. We're getting ready to see a lot of these questions going to get answered pretty soon.
that's right. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to this season preview. That is the Jazz. Got a bunch of other ones done on the channel. So make sure to check those out. Subscribe to VendettaSportsMedia.com. But good luck to all the Jazz fans out there who are rooting for their team. I hope you make the play-in. I picked you to finish 11th, but I hope you get in. That'll be my final word on the Jazz.